We're talking about each one, teach one. This is Dina Marie Live, your hostess with the mostest. And I am basically here telling you today, or talking to you today about each one, teach one. I like this segment, my fave, because I get to teach you about some new stuff and stuff that you probably know about. But even if you don't, what I enjoy is being able to teach it to you. Okay, so what I'm talking about today is culinary art and learning about cooking and different things, that maybe you haven't even thought about. I love watching people on Instagram when they get to cooking and stuff like that because it is like, okay, I didn't even know that so and so has skills like that. But it is awesome, awesome, awesome when you actually see people who are doing their thing on the internet. So with that, um, we are talking about the culinary art and some new recipes and some of my favorite that I enjoy. So we'll talk about that. And so, one of the things that I wanted to talk about in the culinary world here is that when you talk about working, in the kitchen, you know, it is learning culinary, first of all, art can be like a rewarding journey that involves, mastering cooking. Okay. Now, it's not just the cooking of it, it's the technique of cooking and it's the actual art, mastering the flavors, mastering the presentation of it. Some basic things just to think about and talk about if we're talking about considering if you were going to go to culinary school. And like a lot of people, they said, "Oh, I've always wanted to do that." You should do it. Don't let anything stop you. I don't care how old you are. Do what you do and do it well. But the thing is, so let's say, for instance, you decide on a culinary school or self taught, whichever. But you decide whether you want to attend a culinary school or learn through self study and just hands on practice first. A lot of things that I've done, I mean, I have a degree in IT, so it helps me to be adventurous and dove into different things because I like IT stuff. I like being able to just dive in and participate and do certain things. So, with that being said, same concept. If you decide that you want to put your cooking skills to the test, hey, we want to watch. So, put it out there. So, you decide whether you want to go to school or do a self taught. Basic cooking techniques that you should be, in, you know, aware of is you need to start with the fundamentals of cooking techniques. And I always tell people whenever I get ready to do something, I have to make an outline and I break it down to a science. So if I need steps to get me from one to B to two to three to four to so on and so forth, then I will do those, break down those steps to figure out what I need to do. And with that, I will say, okay, the first thing I need is basic cooking techniques. Okay. So I'm going to start with the fundamentals of cooking and what those techniques are, like chopping, sauteing, braising, roasting, and grilling. What's the difference between all of these? How do you do this versus how do you do that? When should I do this versus when should I do that? But these form the foundation of so many dishes. So once you decide what you're going to do and you start doing that, then you want to bring in another skill set, knife skills. Okay. Now, basically, with knife skills, you got to develop proficient knife skills to efficiently, but also safely handle ingredients. Proper cutting techniques are huge. And these are things you wouldn't even think of, right? Proper cutting techniques improve your efficiency in the kitchen, period. You see people, you know, and so when you learn those things and you practice those things, like they say, practice makes perfect. So when you practice those things, you become more efficient and more successful with them. Um, the ingredients of it all, okay, and the flavor profiles, important. You know, just like when they're talking about selecting what type of wine you want with the type of meal you eat. And the rule is match the color of the wine with the color of the meat. Now, we know we don't have red meat. Well, we do, but we don't have it. I don't eat it red. Some people do. But anyway, red meat or white meat is what we're talking about. So if you have red meat, you take red wine. If you have white meat, you take white wine. So lambs, chicken, pork chops, fish, white wine. But the ingredients and food profiles are huge because some people like their food bland. I'm a person that loves my food to have flavor, and a lot of people use salts. I've never been one to use salts. I always use powders. And so I remember cooking for this guy, and it was an Easter meal, and he was like, "Wow," he said, "This is how you make your Easter food." And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "It's delicious." And he was like, because he was intrigued by the flavor of it, because most people, even though he cooked as well, most people, he said that he's so used to the salt, and that's the problem. People make use garlic salt, onion salt instead of garlic powder or onion powder. That it distracts them from the flavor of the dish because it's over salted. Or people learn how to use that salt in moderation, but still it's salty. And so it's not that I don't use salt, but my type of salt that I like to use is a seasoning salt that basically enhances the flavor of the meat or the dish. But with that being said, you got to learn about different ingredients, that flavors, and how they interact. Under basically understanding the taste profiles are going to help you create well balanced dishes. Okay, recipes and their measurements. And I learned a lot of times I will, you can learn how to fix your measurements in a way that if you want to double it or half it, you have to learn how to add and subtract, right? So you have to learn how to do that. So if you are basically begin with simple recipes to practice your skills, chocolate chip cookies or whatever, you just got to pay attention to the measurements as accuracy um, because it's crucial when you're cooking. If you put too much flour, too much baking soda, then you add uh, baking soda, you add salt, it's going to really be salty because basically they both add salt. Baking soda does other things, but just the importance is to pay attention to your ingredients and the measurements and what you're adding together and mixing together. Also, kitchen equipment. You have to familiarize yourself with the proper food handling, storage, and hygienic practices. Now, we don't want nobody chopping meat over here and then you roll out some bread dough. You have to learn how to clean that area to ensure the safety of your dishes and the food and people don't get sick. You don't get sick. But one thing that I found interesting is that there's a culinary theory. And the study of culinary theory includes cooking principles, the nutritional value, flavor combinations, as well as the history of culinary and the knowledge that enhances your creativity. So you have to put all these things together in order to make sure that, excuse me, allergies. Make sure that your dishes come alive, basically. Taste testing and palate development. What I like, taste testing is a wide range of foods to develop your palate, but it also helps you to discern flavors and refine your dishes. There's also experimentation and creativity. Don't be afraid to experiment and be creative because you could make your own dish. I'm sure some of you have. I remember going to Portland, Oregon one year, and they have black eyed peas. They serve black eyed peas there with carrots and other vegetables, some people. And they kept saying, "Have you ever had Hoppin' Johns?" And I was like, "What?" But that's what they call black eyed peas, Hoppin' Johns. But they are very good and flavorful because they put vegetables in it, like bell pepper, carrots, things like that. But this one lady, she and her husband, he was from the South, she was from Portland, and he barbecued. So they had built a pit, and they Oregon had opened up, like this was after that recession back when we had that years ago. They had allowed people to use different things for their bit. In other words, they had a trailer, and as long as that trailer passed code, they were able to use it as part of their restaurant. This is where they did their cooking. Nobody ate in there, but if it was a nice day, they had stuff that set up outside where you could eat, or you could just pick up your food and. go home and eat it. So that's what I did. But she made these little, when I talk about experimenting and creativity, she made these little bundt cakes. You know how you can get the little bundt pans? And they were pound cakes, and she had a creamy filling on the inside. Oh my God, they were so good. It was like banana pudding or something in the bundt. Oh, they were so good. I did a Yelp review on there, and that thing still gets people's attention. I don't know if they're still open there in Portland, Oregon, but very, very good food. Um, but don't be afraid to experiment, everybody, because when you experiment with the ingredients and the techniques of how to put them together, you know this becomes key, that creativity in developing your culinary style. Okay, it's just like me when I sing. I have to develop my technique. I have to develop my singing style, and it's hard sometimes because I'm like, that's not the sound I want, or I don't sound the same, or whatever. But regardless, you are developing your art, and you have to try it in a way that's going to provide you with a style that's going to be different than someone else's. And that's what's going to bring people to you. So that's key and very important. But cooking styles and cuisines, the only way to learn these are to explore. Like people like calamari, it's just something about the consistency on my teeth. However, if I was going to be into cooking and different arts and styles, I would have to try several things just so that I would know what to put out there, right? So, exposure to different types of cooking styles and cuisines from all around the world expands your repertoire, so to speak, and exposes you to very diverse flavors. So you don't want to give up. Now I'm so like hooked on Mexican food, like hooked on phonics. Love me some Mexican food, but I don't like calamari. But I don't like ceviche with calamari in it. But you know, some people will say try it. I've never had sushi, and I need to try it. So I plan on trying it. But if I was one delving into culinary arts and expanding my horizons, I would definitely try more things. But the presentation, when you watch Hell's Kitchen or a different cooking show, if they present that on the plate right, oh my goodness, it just goes over so well. So a lot of those the judges on those shows will tell them, "Hey, you didn't do this right," or the presentation is just not what we expected. So these are things that you have to look up and investigate more so that you're aware of how you should present this on the plate, how it should be presented, and whatnot, because there will be a time in which you have a continuous time to practice, and this consistent practice is essential because when you cook regularly to refine your skills and build your confidence in the kitchen, you're going to learn about the food presentation and the plating and the techniques just to make your dishes visually appealing. So those all kind of come into play. But the main thing that you would be thinking about is the critique and improvement. Because if somebody says, well, it seems like it's missing something, and I don't know what it's missing, but it seems like it's missing. So at that point, a critique is going to be a benefit to you and your improvement. You want to be open to receiving that feedback, whether it's from your peers, your mentors, or self assessment. You might even taste it and say something is missing. But continuous improvement is a part of culinary growth. You got to allow yourself for that expansion. But networking also and mentorship is huge. Put yourself out there with others. Host some type of event where everybody comes, and y'all maybe y'all gonna do a barbecue theme, or maybe you're gonna do a seafood theme, and each person's gonna cook one thing from that particular you know uh, theme. And whatever that is, be open to receiving their feedback, just like you want to give their feedback. But when you're networking and mentoring, you can connect with experienced chefs, and you can also meet culinary professionals and also fellow enthusiasts, other people who are wanting to pursue the dream like you. And their insight and guidance can be essential in you getting to that next level. So keep your heart, mind, and spirit open, folks. You know what I'm saying? We want to advance to the next level. I feel like our world is evolving into a place where self help, it's DIY, do it yourself type of thing. And if you are putting yourself in a mode of where you want to better yourself and you want to make your own money and your own just, then you have to allow yourself the expansion. And in doing so, expansion means criticism or critiquing, I should say, as well as mentorship from someone who has this experience, right? We want someone who can, help us. But just remember that learning culinary art, it takes um, time. It takes, dedication. Don't get discouraged if you have some mistakes, but there's opportunity for growth, right? And that's what we want. Most importantly, is that growth. And whether you're pursuing culinary arts professionally or as a hobby, I know people who make cakes and pies, and I love to be there tasting them. Sometimes they say, "Oh, it don't taste right," and I'm like, "I can't tell." You know what I'm saying? So, with that being said, culinary arts, if it's professional or hobby or your passion and willingness to learn, will be key to your success. So, you want to stay focused and make sure that you are staying focused on those two things. And I wanted to leave you with my two favorite recipes that I'm getting ready to try this week, and I actually have a camera, a hat where I have a camera on it, and so I can cook and film it. And so my goal is to cook and film it, and it's clam chowder and protein pancakes, and they both look delicious. And I cannot wait to make them. So I will be happy to share those things with you all once I make them right here on Dina Marie Live. I am going to get ready for our last and final segment, which is Rep Your City. Hey! And I'll be right back after this, guys. Thank you.